When creating a new graph or opening an existing graph, you'll be taken to your analysis graph screen. Here we'll display all the information that you've chosen to have in that graph on the display, and as you move your mouse around, you can see it pulls up a pop-up window showing all the data set information as well as a time and date stamp. Over across on the far right, there are a few icons here I like to start off with, and this allows you to turn on and off between the graph and a table. The bottom one allows you to see the table, the top one allows you to turn on or off the graph itself, and the middle one here is basically your time toolbar. So you don't have to jump all the way out to your configure button, which will take you back to your configure graph, which is the cogwheel icon here. Instead of going back there and changing your date, I can actually change the time right here at the bottom. So if I want to move back a week, I can click here and it will actually pull in 1 week previous. I can go forward. If I have a relative date, I want to look at yesterday's data or the last 7 days. It'll be based upon today's date. I have all those options here. If I know a particular date range I want to look at, I can either hand type it in or use the calendar. So here I'm going to choose the 4th. And here I'll choose the 8th. And you can see now I have that information on the screen. And that's without having to go to the configure. I have that option here. Now I can toggle that off and on as well. Not a big deal when you're working on a big computer screen, but if you are working with a cell phone or a tablet, that little extra real estate can mean a lot. You also have the ability to suck in this menu options over on the left and then expand them back out to save you some real estate. Working with the icons across the upper top here, the top icon here allows you to toggle edited data and original data. Now, I don't have any edited data here, so you'll notice that the original data and the edited data match because I haven't made any changes. But if I had made a change, you would see that my edited data would be a lower or higher value than my original, which is the dark. And if moving my mouse over, you can see in the pop-up screen, it clearly states that the dark red is the original. So that's what that allows you to do. To note, we always keep original data intact. So even if you do make edits, that's available to get back to your original data. This next icon displays events. When I click on this, you'll see another pane will show up at the very bottom here. So there it is. Now I have the data selected here. Now AppleTree does have a lot of data alarms, so they're showing up in there as data alarms. These are when those alarms triggered. If I had any silent alarm types, triggers, they would show up here. I don't think AppleTree does, and it does not in this time range, but I do know I have a lot of data alarms. If any program changes were made, they would show up. Any of these types of data sets, if I had a sampler and I had sample data here, I could show when those samples and what bottles that those samples were taken into. So that's very helpful. The next icon is toggles notes. Now, notes are set up in the edit screen, which I'll go to next. But to toggle them on and off, if I have a note displayed and I necessarily want it always on, I can toggle them on and off so they're not only displayed when I have it toggled on. To do an edit, I'm going ahead and select, let's go ahead and edit something on the flow rate. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the pane or the data set that I want to work with from the legend. You can see when I clicked on the flow rate, it got bold. That tells the software that it knows I want to work with this data set. As an example, if I was to choose level here, it would know to use the blue and not the green. But just to make things easier to see as I'm doing this, I'm going to choose the flow rate value down here at the bottom to help with any overlap. When I hit the edit button here, it's going to show a number of editing tools will appear at the top. And so there's my editing tools I have to work with. If I select a point on the flow rate, it will know what I want to work with. And as soon as I selected it, it now gave me all my editing tools. To talk about the notes, just to go ahead and finish that off, I can add a note here. And I'm just going to go ahead and call this peak and hit save. And you can see now I have a note that says peak. There's no limitation on the number of notes. If I want to add a note on a different line, I can simply do that by selecting that line. So here's velocity. I'll select a green point on the velocity, something easy to see. If I can get in there, that works good enough. And I will give a note here, and I'll just call this test. And there's my test note. So I can add a number of different notes throughout the graph. It is saved with the graph, so they are going to be there for everyone to see. So if you make a note for someone to verify, they can come in. They can always remove them by selecting the point and hitting the delete note. and that'll get rid of it. Or if they just don't want to see them, they can toggle them off as well. For the rest of the editing tools, I'm going to have a separate video to cover all of these points, just to keep this video a little shorter and concentrated. That's going to allow me to go ahead and just cover the zoom options over here in the upper right. These allow me to set a home and timestamp, so I'll go ahead and set this date here so it's locked in, and as I move around the graph, I'll zoom out a little bit, bring some more data in. It does allow me then to use the go to home option to jump back to the home state. Go ahead and shut my edit screen off here. If I go to full extent, that's going to go ahead and show me all the data in my from my site. That's going to try to pull up. It does have a 1-year maximum, so up to a single year. If I have more than a year, it will only display the year that you're in. If you need more than that, you'll have to drag over some more. But yeah, this is the basically lets you look at all the data. I'm just going to go back to my home point, and gets me back to where I was. The zoom in and zoom out, these are nice for the phones and the tablets. That's why they got these little finger icons here. But the zoom in on a PC, you click on that, you can actually drag across the section you want to look at. It'll zoom in on that section. The zoom out is a little different. There is no cross section. You just click on it. Once it's activated, if I come down here, I just click. Every time I click, it zooms out a little bit. So that's how the unzoom works. To finish off in the lower right hand corner here, the edit graph button, I did discuss that earlier, but if you click on that, it does jump you back over to your configure graph. Please see the other video talking about the configure graph area for more information on this if you didn't see that. You can make changes and then go back in. That saves any changes that you made. I do have a shortcut here to go to the calculate dataset screen, which there's another shortcut for that out here on the analysis screen right down here. So there's a couple ways of getting there. Go ahead and click on my graph again to get back in there. And then finally, this last one, this allows you to save the graph as a different name. The point of this is if somebody else is sharing a graph with you and you open it up and it's not something that you made, you don't have the ability to make changes to it. So therefore, this little icon here will not be available to a graph that you did not make because it's not your graph. However, a workaround is you can make a copy of that graph by having it open and clicking on this, and you can simply just change the name and call it my graph as an example. And then now when you click on that, that graph is now opened up and it's got the new name of my graph. So now when I hit create graph, I have an exact copy of it with the new name, and now I will have the edit graph option. So what you've done is you've copied somebody else's work and gave you a head start on it, but now you've made it your own. So now you can tweak it, add more data sets, change colors, anything that you want to do, but you don't have to start from scratch because you use somebody else's. So that's what the save graph is. That's just one example. Another example is, let's say I don't want to mess with my original. The one I had before, I want to keep it as is, and I want to build on it, but I want to leave it intact. I can use this save graph as I did here, made a second copy of it. Now when I make changes to this, I can go in and I can, let's just get rid of the total flow altogether. So now I don't have that in there, and now I'm going to save this. And now my graph doesn't have that total flow. So now when I go out to analysis, I have the original 7 days here, and then I have the my graph here. You notice the total flow isn't included. So that's what that little toolbar or that little tool down here in the lower right hand does. So that's going to cover it on the analysis tools that are available. Again, I'm going to make a separate video to cover all of the edit. Oh, I do want to mention the export. To export any of this data, you have some export options up here in the upper left-hand corner. I can export this as a CSV. I can include a summary table at the bottom of the CSV if I choose to. And then I also have the option of doing the export with a PDF. The PDF also have the option to add a table. Without this, you're only going to get the graphic interface or the graphic of the graph itself. But if I want to include the table, I can do that here as well. And I can choose the orientation with portrait or landscape. Saving either one of these, it will save that into your downloads folder, in which case you can open that in your Excel for CSV or your Adobe for PDF. For all other instructions, I'm going to cover more on the editing. Please see that. And then I will go ahead and also cover search and templates in this video. So going back to the analysis screen, the search option allows me to select any site and find a particular event that occurred. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select apple tree, and I'm going to grab flow rate and drag it up into this area here so it knows I'm using the flow rate. And I want to know whenever the flow rate was greater than, let's say 550 gallons per minute. And I want it to stay that way at least for, let's say, 20 minutes minimum. The display buffer will allow me to show how much data before and after that event occurs. So let's just do, I'm just going to say 5 minutes. So just show me 5 minutes of data before and after this event. Go ahead and do a search filter on that. It's going to go out and look at every single occurrence, which I should have many, of whenever apple tree went over 550 gallons per minute for at least 20 minutes. And then again, I know I have a number of these events, a lot of them. So it's going to take a little while here, but it's actually going out there and scraping the data, finding all those events, and it's going to make me a table. Now I have a table of all those occurrences and how long those durations were. These are all obviously over the 20-minute duration that I chose. By selecting one, it actually opens the graph and it shows me visually that this is where it happened. I got my time and date stamp at the bottom. Shows my data is over the 450 gallons per minute. And then I have a 5-minute value ahead and behind that event. And so this allows me to go ahead and find certain conditions, and I can just use this. Instead of dropping out and selecting the next one, I can just use this arrow and it will actually jump to the next event and to the next event that fits those criterias. So that is very helpful in the event you are looking for a particular trigger or an event that occurred. I have 715 of these events that got pulled up. I can choose to look at 50 at a time, but they're all listed here, and that's how the search option works. For the template screen, this actually is where all your templates are saved. Any of the templates that you've created will be listed at the top. Any templates that were created and shared publicly are listed at the bottom. What the template screen allows you to do is you can operate the templates directly from the screen. There are some shortcuts under the map and the site screen that you can choose the template that you want. In this case, I'm going to grab this level velocity last 24 hours and I'll pick a site and I will choose Buck Road and hit confirm. And it basically pulled in Buck Road automatically and pulled in the level and velocity into the first pane and the flow rate into the second pane. You can input any of the other sites into those areas, but this is how your templates work. If you want to edit a template, you have that ability here, or you can just delete them straight away.